Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Давайте будем начинать нашу панельную дискуссию.
Dear colleagues, we are going to begin our panel discussion, so please take your seats.
Позвольте мне
Permit me to introduce the panelists and speakers. Evgenia Serova, head of the Moscow office of the UN Agricultural Organization. Thank you for coming back to the country. Yevgeny Savchenko, governor. Andrey Fursenko, aide to the president of the Russian Federation. Alexander Karlin, governor of Altai territory, and we're having experts here. Could you please raise your hands? Sergey Filippov, CEO of Dmitrovskaya Ovoshi Holding Company, and Vladislav Shershulsky, Technological Policy Director, Microsoft. The doctrine of agricultural security and the law on the support for agriculture, as well as the program for the support of agriculture, all aim at raising farm produce output. And the aspects of sustainable development or environmental protection are not really covered there in any substantial detail. All the growth drivers have been practically exhausted, such as the needs of the population, the need for import replacement, and this driver is being depleted. Now farm products are looking to be exported, and new requirements are formulated for them. So what this should be the strategy of agriculture today, and I would like to hand over to Evgenia Serova to set the tone for the discussion on world agricultural development strategies, and then we'll see how we fit in these strategies. Thank you, and good afternoon. I congratulate you on the old calendar new year, which is coming. And I'd like to be a little provocative. I've come to Russia after a long absence from Russia. I have worked at the FAO headquarters, and last year we held numerous meetings with Russian politicians, agricultural players, and academic sectors. And as Natalia has said rightly, a lot of tactical issues, fleeting issues, are being the focus today. People mostly think about today, and you should really look not to stumble, look down, not to stumble, but you should sometimes look up so as not to miss the crossroads. As a society, we do not pay enough attention to strategy. I will not claim or assert that there's no strategic thinking at all, but the general tendency is not really strategic. As you all will know, and we can see 17 posters with the Sustainable Development Goals adopted by all UN members in 2015. The second Sustainable Development Goal is what we are faced with: food security, fighting hunger, improvement of nutrition, and assistance to sustainable agricultural development. It was like that in the previous 15 years as well, but let me point out what new we have here in this set of goals. It is, of course, a very ambitious task. It's not to have or reduce by half the size of hunger, the scope of hunger, but to end it altogether. And the second element is sustainable production. It's not just an increase in production or productivity, it's making this production sustainable. This word sustainability is not always understood correctly. People believe that stability means high rates of growth or something. It's not about this. Sustainability of production is making food today so as to leave resources for our grandchildren as well, to produce something for themselves. This is what sustainability is about, and this is what we need to think about, because we have approached a threshold where no further extensive development of farming is available. We do not have enough sources of water or energy. I mean, the world community has not enough resources to intensify production through these means. And then the third set of goals has to do with the quality and safety of food. It's a striking fact that if you look worldwide, only in this is not so in sub-Saharan Africa, but the share of obese people elsewhere in the world is higher than the share of people who are affected by hunger or famine. So that's an issue of the quality of nutrition. Diabetes is on the rise, as well as cardiovascular diseases, all diseases associated with the quality of food. So fighting hunger is going to the background, whereas coming to the foreground is the food quality issue and nutrition quality issue. There are three components to food security as defined by FAO several decades ago. It's physical availability, economic accessibility, and enough quantity and quality for the entire population. How possible is the achievement of the goal I have mentioned? In the previous 15 years, the task was to reduce the share of people affected by hunger by a half. And this map shows in green the countries that have attained this goal. Marked in yellow were countries that were very close to attaining this target, and shown in red are only the countries which did not attain this goal. And so the issue of famine is not that acute anymore, of course, and it depends on how a country defines hunger by itself. Here are a few facts which I'm not going to take in their entirety for lack of time. So despite the progress made in the past decade and a half, there are still 5 million people dying of malnutrition under 5 years of old. 1/3 of the population in developing countries suffer from a deficit of micronutrients. Growth delays, issues, etc. And of course, the situation in Russia is much better, but the problem is there as well. When now about sustainability, when they hunted mammoths, they could afford to cut out the mammoth's liver and eat it, whereas discard all the rest. But we cannot afford this any longer. And if you look at the dump heaps of food which is not eaten and discarded and then discarded, it's a third of the world's food resources, which means that we have taken that third away from our grandchildren. And on August 8th, 2016, we passed an interesting threshold. The world used more resources than the planet was able to restore in 1 year. So the globe is on the brink of a precipice. And by 2013, in order to feed entirely the population that will live on the planet, 50% more food needs to be produced with 40% more water and 40% more energy, and that in conditions of limited resources and climatic change, which is so far undetermined, but we do record more frequent droughts and floods. They are all factors of climatic change. So a new paradigm of economic growth is needed. Just growth is not what we can be happy with. This is a graph depicting obesity, and you can see how the difference between obese people and those affected by malnutrition. Now about Russia. The Russian hunger level is very small. We cannot even take it seriously. Our agro-industrial sector is the only growing sector in Russia. Exports are growing. The share of spending on farming is comparable to that of other OECD countries. The quality of food is improving. We can criticize it, but things are getting better and better, and the government food security policy is there. The country is concerned about that, but volatility of harvests continues, and I've made an estimate of the last 15 years and compared it to Canada. In Russia, harvest volatility is tens of and hundreds of times higher than in Canada. The zigzag of the graph reflecting our harvests is vastly different. And in the past 8 years, it's still higher than in the previous 15 or in the past 15, which means there's a technological gap on the whole. I'm not talking about the companies represented here, which are in the forefront and have excellent technology. The spending on agricultural science and education are extremely low. They're below India and many other countries. There's absolutely no strategy to reduce food losses and waste strategy, agricultural waste. We do not even have an agency, a government agency that would be interested in dealing with the issue. The entire world is concerned about that. Every country has a national program to fight losses and waste. We're trying to find a talking partner, but no one interested. Now, soil degradation, we have an excellent speaker on that later. There's still a problem with the quality of food. The number of obese people and their share is growing. And now, poor stability of the agrarian policy and internal corruption are another factor. So these pictures depict the advantages or the more positive characteristics indicating good developments. And Russia, along with Brazil, is one of the few environmental donors of the world. But does this mean that we need to use our resources to the maximum and to give them away? The trend in favor of exporting everything means exporting our biological resources. Exports at any cost would amount to the export of our biological resources. And the research department of The Economist magazine has, for a number of years, come up with an estimate of the food security index. So blue means full index, orange economic availability, gray means physical availability, and yellow means quality of food. As you can see, Russia is not in a bad situation. Each of these components is made up of up to 15 more specific parameters, which I'm not going to go into. So what are the three major factors of low physical accessibility?
It's first of all, this is corruption, volatility of production, political instability, and investments in science. And the basic investor normally is represented by private business, and private business would not go there if there is no stable agrarian policy and instability in society as a whole. And the same is true for the soil and others. Expenses and expenditures of the states for R&D in different countries could be seen on this chart, and the first two columns would be Russia, Canada, followed by China, European Union, USA. Education. Yes, we do have an excellent presentation. And speaking about the private sector, tremendous gap, generation gap is there, and we have not bridged the gap. And this gap between generations is a serious problem, and we need resources for that. Food waste. Here is the chart where we see the losses, and Russia is 56 kilograms of foodstuffs, food waste. It's lesser than in Germany and the United States, but everybody understands that this is underestimated because we don't have proper monitoring. And in any case, 20–25% are lost resources. And the last slide for illustration, this is true for the people with obesity. The upper line is women, the lower line is men from 15 to 18 years. The statistics is even worse. It means that the problem is aggravated by young generation. Thank you for your attention, and with this, I will turn it over to the next speaker. The reduction of waste was never seriously considered, and thank you, Evgenia Viktorovna, for such interesting viewpoint on this problem. And I see Elena Astra-Hantseva, the Deputy Minister of the Agricultural Industry. So could you tell us and elaborate on these issues? Perhaps the Ministry of Agriculture views differently on these things. The floor is yours. Thank you for the opportunity to join your event and have the floor. And today we see how quickly the rhythm of science and technology is developing, and throughput technologies are developed, and the structural chains of added value are also changed. And All these factors of modern economic development bring us to changes in concepts and approaches to strategic planning for the development of economy of the country and specifically of agriculture. And on the slide you see the global tendencies which bring about global challenges for the development of the Russian agro-industrial complex, technological, political, scientific, and the most important economic challenges is the intensive demand for food, increase of consumption of the agricultural food, the growing population, limitation of trade barriers because of the national food security policies, and social challenges as the split in the level of income in the population, lost jobs in rural areas, and social standpoint of in villagers because of industrialization of agriculture, the growth of popularity of healthy lifestyle, rational nutrition. And among technological challenges here, the platform technologies of interministerial purpose, the growth in scientific and technical innovations, regional specializations, reduction in the rhythm of crop growing, which is related with the end of the so-called green revolution, the loss of foodstuffs during storage and transportation, technological risks which were caused because we were lagging behind the advanced countries, such as differences in the requirement to the safety of foodstuffs, control, causes a serious challenge to the food security. So we need to organize a national system of technological forecasts, and it is a top priority in the special law. It was assigned to make a forecast which contains the forecast of technological of respective sectors, including the agrarian sector. To have a systemic approach, in 2015, the Ministry of Agriculture, together with the National School of Economics, initiated this program for the period up to 2030. This is the document of strategic planning, which contains the assessment and recommendations to upgrade scientific and technical process to shape the branch programs and strategies. And our purpose was to identify the most promising directions up to 2030, which guarantee food security and which makes it possible to turn Russia into the global supplier of foodstuffs with deep processing capabilities. And there are two scenarios. This is the local growth and global breakthrough. And first of all, these are the announced targets, priority technologies, approach to the capacity building, and we see as priority the global breakthrough. This scenario as a priority foresees the development of export potential, diversification of agrarian industry. As I said, diversification of agricultural branches, development of adaptive infrastructure, and the state support of agrarian sector will be developed to shape the modern institutions, co-financing of strategical and technological processes, capacity building of high skill, promotion of foodstuffs at the foreign markets. And we have to underline that the directions we mentioned, these are the priorities for optimistic scenario, and all priority scenarios for local growth are mandatory for both scenarios. And As part of the scenario of global breakthrough, there will be new technological directions specific for some branches of agrarian complex. These are platform technologies such as plant growing, cattle breeding, processing of agricultural products. And these are technologies of urbanized agricultural business, the waste recycling technologies, fisheries and foodstuffs, with the acquisition of thin chemical and pharmaceutical products, and also convergible and smart electronics control and logistical approach of personalized nutrition programs for new generations and technology of production of synthetic foodstuffs. And this is part of the roadmap, which is called Food on 5 segments, will be prepared, and these directions will be covered, and specific projects will be chosen, and we will support the projects. On slide 8, we showed, as per FAO forecast, we see that the growth will be 3% a year and will amount to $9.3 billion. And the global breakthrough, the share of Russia by 2030 may amount to 3.5%, which is equal to $320 billion. And if the sanctions are withdrawn from Russia, we could approach the same shares as 1.5–3%, depending on scenarios, what is reflected on the slide. On the 13th of December, the Ministry of Agriculture reported the basic ideas of the forecast, and the Prime Minister was informed about this on issues related to agrarian sector and sustainable development. And Mr. Medvedev ordered to develop the federal scientific and technological program for agriculture up to 2025. And this is being developed by the ministry with all agencies and bodies interested in line with the Decree 350. This is the federal scientific and technological program to develop agricultural industry and provide support and mitigates the risks in the agrarian sector. And these missions are enumerated here. As part of its accomplishment, by 2025, we will have fully fledged infrastructure and institutional conditions for cooperation and educational environment to upgrade their competitive ability and to ensure food safety. And we will reduce the dependence of agrarian and fishery industry from seeds, from diagnostics, from veterinary products from the West, and we will ensure better control over quality of agricultural products produced on the territory of Russia. And this is a very important element strategically for the country to improve the lifestyle of Russian citizens. The federal program will include several sub-programs, and at present the Ministry of Agriculture, together with many ministries, developed 2 sub-programs, vertically integrated structures on the basis with the leaders of the market to ensure the branch of potato growing with excellent seed capacity and very advanced technological approach. And the second program is targeted to create the system of selection and breeding of modern genetic and genome methods, ensuring the indigenous breeds of poultry with the best global analog, and also to create indigenous crosses of poultry adapted to different conditions of the climate and different infections. I would like to underline, to ensure the competitiveness of agrarian complex, the food and biological security of the country. We believe the ministry is following through the innovative development, and in line with this, raw materials and foodstuffs will be concentrated to develop the scientific potential of the agrarian complex and support new directions in the adjacent sciences to upgrade structural scientific program to develop the agrarian complex by 2025. 60% of seeds used here should be of indigenous selection. Thank you for your attention. As you see, this is so vast program, and they find their reflection in this program, but still the terms are really very complicated, and it's sometimes hard to understand what's going to happen on the ground, and perhaps what should be the incentive which would force the private business to use all this and to be part of that program. It's kind of a risky part. And now I would like to come back, and we see with great interest what's happening in the region of Belgorod, and also a serious program on small-scale housing, building, and now having this tremendous scope of experience. Perhaps you have your own vision for that, and perhaps you will share your impression about the strategy, and might be the example how that could be extrapolated in other areas. Thank you, Natalia Ivanovna, and I'd like to welcome everybody and thank for their participation in a very interesting community of colleagues. It's true that with Alexander we will continue to talk about strategies at the same kind of act, but at a different angle. And having said that, having this regional experience and vision of this problem, what is the strategy? And any strategy is the balance between the opportunities and risks. And here you will find this balance and take advantage of it to the maximum. And what are the capabilities of Russian agricultural sector? And judging on the basis of the most advanced farms, using the soils which we have, we could feed 300 million people, 150 million people in Russia, Russian citizens, and 150 million those who are starving all over the world. And I agree with the deputy minister that our export potential could be amounted to the sum of $300 or $400 million. And actually, this is the export potential or earnings which we get from the hydrocarbons sales. And there might be a motto now going from simple hydrocarbons to complicated hydrocarbons for foodstuffs. Could be regarded as complicated, hydrocarbons, and that's the way to go, export of foodstuffs. And what kind of challenges do we see here? And first of all, the international markets, nobody is waiting for us there. So we are really interested in the clients who can pay for our products, and we need to use FAO and others international organizations who could provide financial support to ensure the sales of excess foodstuffs, some kind of international funds supporting these programs, like in Zambia or in Chad or Somalia. There should be some international organizations. They sometimes go to Europe directly, and perhaps they might come to us, and we have to think it over how to ensure supplies to those regions. Let's say one lady, one kid. And that's how it's going to be solved in the future. And so they have to pay for what we supply. Now, genetic dependence. We have excellent programs, but how to execute those programs, we need to develop our science, and how much money we spend for scientific programs.
We do not take this issue because it's understandable enough, but what we need to finance is corporate research. The Ministry of Agriculture and the Russian government should say, well, let's take any farming company with an output of more than 1 billion rubles. You need to have a laboratory. If you produce in excess of 5 billion rubles worth of farm products, you should have an enterprise. If you put out more than 10 billion rubles worth, you need to have a research and production center. These are our rules of the game. Like Dmitrovsky ovoshi, Dmitrov vegetables. What are you interested in academically or in terms of research? We need, for example, to develop hybrid seeds for tomatoes and cucumbers, because otherwise we have to import everything. Okay, come up with your program. You finance this part, and we co-finance to this extent. We launch this program. It's supported by everyone, and 3 years later, it is a project whose results are available to the entire Russia. This is what we are lacking. Now, agriculture, well, its revenue is relieved from income tax. I think it's at least 300 or 400 billion rubles. Can we allocate at least 10% of that amount to to their own research facilities and to obtain intangible assets to capitalize on them? This is a must, and we need simply to create the rules of the game and make it a law, like 30 to 40 billion rubles of corporations, or you could take a part of government support and channel it into research. And then academic resources will all be in high demand. Universities will be in demand, and there will be no brain drain. They will all be engaged in this innovation process. I see no approaches. I see no problems in dealing with this. All we need are rules of the game. Now we need to think seriously about the digitalization of farming and the agro-industrial complex of the Russian Federation, because investment in a digital economy is the most pressing and urgent task of the day. I have recently read that by 2035, China plans to create 500 million jobs in the digital economy. But who will tell me how many jobs we plan to create for the digital transformation of the agro-industrial complex? 1 million, 2 million, let's calculate. And then there will be a totally different level of competitiveness for our agriculture and the agro-industrial complex, but no one is concerned about this. Now, what kind of product can we access international or Russian markets? Of course, environmentally clean products. Russia has unique opportunities to come up with the quality of farming products that no European country, nor even the Chinese, can produce. We have a large reservoir of uncontaminated land and the environment. Environmental standards must be established, and when adopted, we need to feed our own people with environmentally clean products and to start exporting them. This will be a competitive product, and we are going to be #1 in the world. And this requires the formulation of programs. For example, in animal husbandry, the replacement of antibiotics by probiotics with organic synthesis. Children and grandchildren, what is the situation today? The estimate for Russia is that we take 4 tons of dry matter per 1 hectare. But how much do we leave in place? 2, 2.5, 3 maximum. In the oblast, in our oblast, we plan to take out and leave 5 tons of dry matter, that is all kinds of residue and organic fertilizer. We need a positive balance of dry matter. That's should be the chief motto of agriculture, and it's easy to assure technologically. Instead, we burn the remains of harvest, and that's a barbaric system. It must be forbidden by law. Now, macroeconomic risks. Of course, the chief macroeconomic risk here is the currency exchange risk. Now, God forbid, our anti-sanction measures will lose effect, which is politically quite reasonable, but what are we going to use to defend ourselves? By consolidating, are we going to do that by consolidating by strengthening the rubles? In the year 2000, $1 was worth 20. In theory, our ruble rate needs to be 5 times higher, or 150 rubles, but at least make it a stable 70 to 75, and then try to push it toward 100, and then the entire economy will be competitive. This is what the Chinese do. The Chinese miracle, what does it consist in? Of course, they dropped their national currency from 0.54% to 0.12 yuan for a dollar. 1 yuan equal to 0.12 yuan, dollar, and the currency exchange rate is the chief macroeconomic risk, and we need not only to link it to oil prices. This is totally wrong. We need to link it to the balance between to balance the interests of Russian producers and manufacturers and consumers on the one hand, and the competitiveness of our area of development, the development of recreational agriculture. Moscow, with an area around it with a radius of 300 kilometers, it should be recreational agriculture. What does it mean? It means 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 hectares, a maximum of 200 hectares or 300 with land and a small pond, a small wood, and a small river. It should be linked to the development of family mansions. At least 100,000 people in Moscow who have at least 100 million rubles who would be happy to go there and develop under a state program support recreational agriculture. Some would start making unique cheese. Some could provide mushrooms. Some could start fisheries, restaurants, horse breeding, etc. And it would be it's 300 to 400 rubles per one inhabitants in terms of infrastructure, or roughly speaking, roads and highways. But well, this has to be looked into as well. And talking of vision and strategy, we need to apply, apart from programs, all the programs must be converted to project mechanisms, to projects, import replacement project, animal husbandry projects. There should be hundreds of such projects going right from the ministry or the government to a rural council or to local government. They should be sectoral. Caused so much enthusiasm. You have so many ideas, and you have done a lot. For example, those family mansions. Such a program does exist in your own oblast. Thank you very much. A few months ago, we held Gaidar readings in Altai territory, and when we prepared for those Gaidar readings and looked at statistics, we were surprised that the nice evolution of agricultural production even among its neighbors. Not only do they produce a lot, they produce some products that are quite comparable to the best European products, and there are a lot of peculiarities, and the territory has a very high share of rural. We live in Siberia, which has a complicated climate. As regards warming, I think it's a little too bold to say. In October, our frosts were as low as 40 degrees below zero, and this is not exactly what the Muscovites experience. A few years ago, we had received a delegation of farmers from the Federal Republic of Germany, and we discussed the development of dairy cattle breeding. And when they were leaving, I asked them, please, when you come back to your home country, do not tell the media too much about our discussions of dairy farming. And they were surprised and asked me, why not? What are you concerned about? And I told them that if animal defenders learn about our milking cows at -40, the reaction might be too strong. But that's a joke. But talking seriously, an animal in conditions of the Siberian climate, half of its feed, half of their feed goes into the maintenance of the animal's body itself, and only the second half is spent on the generation of milk. And talking of what the agricultural map of Russia is like, of course, the food security strategy and doctrine are absolutely essential and necessary, but we are convinced that those documents should not restrict, but give some freedom to our farmers and authorities in the regions so that, well, I gave you just one example, but there are 7 soil and climatic zones in Altai territory, and when we sum up our emulation results in the agricultural sector, we break down our winners as by categories of those lands. It would be wrong to compare desert farming with fertile soil farming, and you will agree with this, I hope. And the same is true of such a vast and unique country as Russia. I'll just make one point because my colleagues have already mentioned others, and I will be brief. In fact, what is being cultivated is the idea of full self-sufficiency of Russian regions in food. I think this is not entirely reasonable, and this reminds me of the well-known program implemented in the era of what they called developed socialism, when every industrial enterprise was required to have a small farm to support its or to feed its workers. And those farms were built and equipped with cutting-edge technologies and were very efficient on so long as factories and plants supported them. But when that support drained away, they were the first to die in the subsequent years. And when we say that transpolar regions need to provide themselves with food, at some point we can resolve this problem because technologically everything is possible now. We've visited a show in Berlin a few years ago during the Green Week, and our colleagues from one of the northern regions brought a lemon farm there from the north with producing very large lemons, and there was a lot of interest in it. Local visitors came and were really amazed. They discussed things eagerly, and I sent my man there who knows German very well to listen to what they were talking about. And he told me they were saying that's an example of economic absurdity. Just look, what absurdity they are engaged in, raising lemons beyond the polar circle. Of course, one can do it as a hobby or as an exotic exercise, but as a serious technological project, it's stupid, and there's no need for that at all. And this is why I believe, and I also try to convey this idea to the Ministry of Agriculture and to the legislative bodies, the idea that regional specialization, something that everybody is quite familiar with, should not be abandoned.
So that we could provide incentives for agricultural sector in respective regions, specifically focusing attention on these aspects, and not exactly mentioning the climatic conditions, but also logistical aspects. And we got acquainted with Sergey Nikolaevich, excellent holding company, but his conditions of work in the Moscow regions and our vegetable producing companies in Altai, where logistical connections means thousands and thousands of kilometers and a completely different setup of expenses. And Mr. Zubkov, his name should be cut in gold in the history of the indigenous agriculture. He is the ideologist of and inspirer of the development of agricultural program. After one of the meetings, he invited me for a couple of minutes for a conversation. And please explain to me, do you like cheese so much? How much cheese, 1,000 tons of cheese are there? Could you please explain? And we didn't have to spend too much time because he understands things very seriously. Not everybody knows that profitability of level of dairy products is many more times more profitable than cheese, and we've been making it for 75 years, and we are making it because the sour milk products, we cannot approach the markets, and we can approach it with cheese. And the Ministry of Agriculture, thanks God, started to understand this, and we hope they will initiate the milk intervention concerning the natural cheese, hard cheese, animal cheese, and dry milk. And I think that will contribute to the fact so that we could shape commodity reserves on the market. And I could continue to elaborate on this as far as extensive or intensive way of agricultural development. If we talk about plant growing where all land is used, this is the extensive capabilities, and they are about to end. And we discontinued to use it about 8 years ago, and today we don't have any land which is wasted, and now we are concentrating on the intensive way to develop agriculture. But as through the whole of the country, this problem is still exists, and we talked about the complicated hydrocarbons, and from complicated to most complex hydrocarbons. What exactly do I mean? Grain and cereals is very good, but flour is even better, or spaghetti is even better, or cereals also good. It means we need to sell abroad a ready-made product which is technologically processed so that it could go directly to the shelf of the supermarket. So, or you can even give it free of charge to citizens if the state pays for that. So this is one topic. And one more topic concerning the foodstuffs, concerning the functional nutrition. And I agree fully that our country should have a program on children nutrition. And I think it's a very important issue. It's a matter of national importance, the children's health. And we still have closed the production of nutrition for specific groups of population, for elder generations, and the topic which is very close and very painful to some of us is the nutrition of our sportsmen. If it hadn't been for some of our sportsmen who were undergoing training in Altai region, they never had any scandals. If they didn't use or allegedly use, they could go into the specific procedures, and we could do it clean. We have several hundreds of products for functional products for the professional sportsmen, which are not intensively used, and part of that products which we get from the northern deer, we have to export it and not to give it to our sportsmen. And the last topic, this is the topic of the development of rural territories. Perhaps it is even more important than the agricultural produce as it is. And I think the development of rural territories, very harmonic and modern, that contributes to the development of agrarian industry. But on the other hand, this is a matter of reproduction of the nation, of the people, of its culture, tradition, of its everyday life, and many more issues. That's what we call the sustainable development of the territories. And we managed to convince the government and the ministry to adopt such regional program, and today we even have a federal program. It is about to end shortly, and our request would be to continue this program, not to lose this document, which exceeds the limits of only branch problematics. It's the topic of a really higher level and more conceptual than the agricultural produce itself. Foodstuffs could be brought, but to get hold of the nation, to import the nation, you can't do that. It is a matter of everyday efforts for reproduction. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You brought up so many strategic developments and ideas. Well, what should be really used to, let's say, to come up with the natural sports nutrition products? And now there are lots of ideas which are common both for the Belgorod region as well, also the nutrition for schoolboys and schoolgirls, like honey and milk, and this is a great idea. Thank you. Thank you very much. Since 2011, the Ministry of Education and Science contributed to the creation of centers for making forecasts for technological developments and rational use of soil. And the question arises like this: is reanimation of such agricultural science, and you started this kind of work, and do you continue to do that concerning science? So that what needs to be done, in your opinion, proceeding from the missions which we face today? Thank you very much. It's nice to be the last to speak. And first of all, I definitely agree with what was said here, but I would like also to add something. And when we talked about health, it's the change of the concept of attitude to health, health saving. We have not just to treat the people who are sick, but the matter of nutrition is a defining issue. What are we going to do with healthcare? Are we going to treat people who are sick, or we will preserve those who are still healthy? And when we talk and discuss this topic of agrarian complex, perhaps this is one of the key issues and one of those great challenges to be discussed and mentioned as the most crucial one. And we named certain challenges and challenges in order to somehow tackle with them. We need to focus our attention to 1, 2, or 3. You cannot just go broad, otherwise you will disperse your resources. And not only we are talking today what's in front of us, but to look into the future. And they've been formulated, and in the speeches of my predecessors, I would like to focus your attention on the following: what is relevant to education, and specifically with education and science. This is the mandate which I have. And Evgeny Stepanovich formulated the answers. Those challenges were outlined. This is health, with the help of nutrition, food security, and economic expansion due to the developments in this sector. And these topics were clearly identified. And what are the basic tools to make it happen? And basic approaches we have to consider: again, the capabilities which we have, and assess the risks. We could start with the risks, and the first one, the losses. Losses all over the world, and we are the leaders, unfortunately, in this. And what exactly does it mean? It's a different type of processing, different quality for storage, and a different quality of product produced, of vegetables and grains, so that they rotten differently. And what else? We have serious problems. I will enumerate them, but a few. It's the problem with its old pedigree cattle. It's a problem with seeds in the majority of directions, the problem with the indigenous pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, probiotics, they are basically imported, and nutrition and many additives and biological protection of plants. All these things, we have dependence on global economy. We are not talking about the isolation of ourselves, but colleagues. But 10 years ago, the word sanctions was never considered. And today, what was done in respect of our country, it's not exactly the maximum what could be happened. This is in those sectors which are really sensitive. Nobody is sanctioning us on the supplies of oil to ours. If we see things where we are not self-sufficient, we are not talking about things that we have to produce it ourselves. We have to be capable to produce that. In this case, we will be protected. And by importing the seeds, they should be regionalized. And if we talk about the cattle, so we have to adapt the cattle to specific regions where they live. And New Zealand cows will not survive in winter here. And besides, the breed of cows from New Zealand is different in anatomy. And you have to understand these problems and understand and single them out stage by stage, what could be done quickly and what could be acquired, or wait until we are prepared for additional expenses. And we have a unique opportunities. We are supplied with water in a quite sufficient manner. And we have fairly good environmental conditions, and besides, we have most diverse climatic conditions. And it means that in case of changes of climates, this diversity will be maintained, and we are in greater protection as compared with any other country in the world in terms of climate change. And when we talk, and besides, we have markets which are quite mature and could pay for the products which we produce. But at the same time, there is a big problem, that is insufficiency of export infrastructure. Should we really be interested to make $300 or $400 million a year, we have to clearly understand that to make it happen, we need the infrastructure of different quality, and this is also part of the agrarian sector. Otherwise, even if you produce cheese, you won't make your ends meet. And if we clearly formulate the key issues which could be resolved by our own efforts, and if we could really understand problems which jeopardize our market, not spreading it all over the piece of bread, we got excellent chances to move ahead. At the same time, we need different quality of education, and Evgenia Viktorovna told us about this, and education requires a broader approach. Not only a digital economy, we need a different understanding of the whole issue as a whole. And these are high-tech, very high-tech, and I clearly remember that 15 years ago, Nestle vice president said that the highest technologies, that is nutrition and agrarian sector. Well, at that time, I thought it sounded strange, but this is genetics, this is state-of-the-art equipment, advanced digital technologies, a correlation of live nature, and it is very important to single that out and work with all those issues. Andrey Alexandrovich, and the question of finance of scientific programs is very important, and annual financing is really very minimum, 60 times less than the resources spent in the United States. This program is developed not exactly to have a bright motto at the face of agricultural ministry. We do have some grants and support certain specific projects. If we go and start support all the programs, we will not be able to succeed because we have limited amount of money.
We need to single out the most sensitive issues, and we've discussed that with you and you too, but money should be allocated on a much larger scale, but it cannot be only at the expense of the government. There should be clear terms of cooperation between the businesses, and they do realize that. I've talked to several major holding companies which told me that under understandable terms and output targets we are ready to play, but we need firm rules of the game on the part of the government, and then we will do our part as well. The money is there, and it is not so little. Thank you very much. Well, from research, we move smoothly to education. Education is in need of reform, absolutely. The various stages of education, higher, secondary, specialized, what is outdated there as through the business people's eyes. So, Sergey Nikolaevich, please take my seat and take the floor. Good afternoon. In the first place, let me first introduce Dmitrov Vegetable Company. If you Google it, you will find our website, and you may learn a lot about our company there. The company is big enough, and we are the leading company in the making of and growing of vegetables and potatoes, but it's a multifaceted company. We do not only produce vegetables, we also store them, we process them, we also do grain and some dairy farming. And when we talk about education, then human resources and specialists are badly needed in practically all areas. We need agronomers, veterinarians, zoo technicians, technologists, processing engineers, storage engineers, and experts. So any big company assigns a great role to economists, lawyers, and analysts. It's quite clear and understandable. Again, without going into abstract or academic matters, I will describe what is actually taking place in the country. What have we seen in the past 20 to 25 years developing in our education sector and higher education sector as well? I was born in a village, and my mother was a teacher, a rural teacher. I remember that the party announced the slogan of universal secondary education, embracing all forms of education, including correspondence education and evening classes, evening schools. But a few decades later, without any insistence from the Communist Party, we moved from universal secondary education. We moved to universal higher education. I come from the town of Dmitrov and Dmitrov district. Dmitrov plus its district are inhabited by 150,000, and we have some 18 branches of various universities and colleges. located elsewhere, and some 80 to 90% of them graduate economists, financiers, lawyers. I do not want to offend anyone, but I call them office plankton. Whereas we need agronomers, zoo technicians, veterinarians, but those specialities, it is very difficult to find a good vet. These people are really non-existent. They are in the red book of specialists, and I have always been surprised. And considering that I'm working in the Moscow Oblast, I'm also a graduate and alumnus of the Tymyr-Yazov Agricultural Academy, so we have worked a lot with the Tymyr-Yazov Academy and their faculty. And I had contacts 3 to 4 years ago. We had held a reception. We announced the enrollment of students to the major mechanization of agriculture, and that was also associated with economics and everything, but commercialization of education in the agricultural sphere has not yielded any good results, and because no one enrolled, or very few enrolled. And another problem I see in education is the gap between education and practice. When graduates are hired, you ask them during a baccalaureate years, how long was your length of practical on-hands training? Some would say 2 weeks, some none at all. Earlier, I was familiar with the educational system in the German Democratic Republic. After the third year of study, because I went to a German school, and we really kept going to training session and hands-on studies. Our education, our teaching system was inextricably linked with practical work, but today's agricultural universities and colleges have simply lost facilities where to train their students in practical terms. But we have some good experience when students from the Tymyr-Yazov Academy visit us for a term of come to for an internship of 3 months to us. We have good experiences in the master's degree training department. But again, depending on region, there are different regions that develop in different ways. And maybe what I'm saying here is not a problem anymore in elsewhere, but the problems that we experience, shortage of experts and practical specialists, I have no more shortage. In 2010, I built 6,000 square meters of company financed living space, and I use it to attract specialists. to our company. So it appears that you suggest government should should pay free stipends, should pay fellowships to students of agricultural specialties. I would look broader at that. I would single out people who go into agriculture as a special category. Working in agriculture is very difficult. And I have studied the experience of European countries, including Germany, and looked at how meticulous they are in and how much care they provide for farmers and their families and children. Today, when everybody has to take universal school termination exam, what happens is that rural dwellers are unable to enter college or university because of their poor school results, or not poor, but less advantageous than others. So a different approach is necessary. You also said you held practical, that there used to be practical training facilities, but when they had to be privatized under a common approach, what happened was that they went bankrupt, and all in all, what has remained are just 10 agricultural training facilities. So we need to do steps, to make steps so as not to lose those facilities at all, and maybe some private-public partnership could be used to improve things. And yes, there used to be those practical training facilities. They were the first to go bankrupt, and this is quite true. And now most colleges and universities, even our Timiryazev Academy, they have serious problems with where to send their students for practical training. So the role of major agricultural holding companies may be very formidable. We need some joint work both in education and research and training. And when they say that businesses standing aside, I disagree with this. We are prepared for this, and what we need is the initiative, some initiative, because what I have observed recently is that our colleges live in an environment of their own, and this may apply to research centers. Owing to the program that we have seen developing. In the past 3 months, I've talked to researchers and academics more than in the previous 15 years. So when you begin talking to them, and with Mikhailovich, we have talked a lot recently. We have nationwide maybe 10 potato selectionists at best, and if you take Holland, there seem to be several hundred such specialists, and the same is true of in the area of vegetables. So the initiative, the desire to meet each other's interests halfway is something that requires two parties. So Elena Yurievna has described a wonderful program indeed, and it's indeed difficult to add anything to it, but how can we take a down-to-earth approach? How can it bring it closer down to earth is a very difficult question. Thank you for your provocative statement. Now, one more brief statement. Now, the concept of Internet things, Internet objects has emerged, encouraged by the development of agriculture, because agriculture has to do with organisms that are different in quality in every field. And in order to keep track of that diversity, IT and digital technologies are necessary. So there's a statement which at first caused my surprise, but a representative of Microsoft would like to suggest something for agricultural strategy based on his experience. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss this matter. Indeed, it will be a huge responsibility if I undertake to suggest any points in the development programs, because there are enough good specialists. But on the other hand, you should not be surprised by the presence of a Microsoft man at such a meeting. And there are several reasons for that. One of them is that Microsoft is ultimately a company which keeps track of what can be done in every sector, and is already a big player in terms of in agriculture, also in both in terms of biotechnology development in the agro-industrial sector. Another high-tech company doing this is Intel, and also recently we have seen growing interest on the part of professional agro-industrialists in digital technologies. But if you think thoroughly, agriculture is one of the sectors that are can be most fruitful in this regard. And it's great when there are people who are responsible for it begin talking about digitalization. As a matter of fact, this is great, and if we can be of any use, you can rely on us in more than just readiness to do business. It's also people's interest, the interest of people who want to do something of interest and to see the results of their effort, which are less trivial than everywhere. There are several areas in which agriculture has changed very considerably, and this includes a large number of very pressing issues. One of them is precision agriculture, so that we can precisely link every square meter of farmland to its geographical location, cultivation, and land treatment, and we can understand better how to cultivate a certain area of land, how much pesticide or herbicide to use. And when we go over to a new generation of agricultural machinery, which really looks at every small shrub, the use of chemicals may be reduced by an order of magnitude, and if you still have some environmentally clean areas, you can easily sustain a high environmental standard.
We do have a different side of the matter, and of course you can traditionally make more efficient agriculture, but another side of this program you can move closer or even closer, bring it closer to the agglomerations. This is the vertical farms with fairly high standards of automation and illumination, so that you can reduce the areas and the balance of costs of logistics, and production could be brought to such a level that the production of urban agrarian production could be more efficient. So this agricultural sector is changing substantially. Our attitude is also changing, what is profitable and what is not, in which region, for what company it is efficient. These things could also be changed. And I also took part in strategies and worked with the customers involved in these missions. Those were developed countries where a lot of people, they understand that this is necessary in terms of competition, or because everybody is doing the same. But that wasn't a kind of a strategic approach, whereas in Russia this is really a very serious effort which could be a strategic factor for its development. It could be also interesting to increase the level of production by reduction of climatic risks or some other things, and also become a factor of promotion of reasonable forms of acquiring and developing those areas which have no sufficient infrastructure, and intensive development of agriculture where we have local development areas like in Norilsk might be also of interest. So I could claim that for such types of work and new use of new tools, Russia is considered to be one of the most interesting places to be. And I was happy to continue, and thank you very much, but allow me to stop at this point. Colleagues, of course, let's sign up one by one, and 30 seconds for every comment. I propose to create a pilot platform. We have a roadmap. This is Bortnik Fund. We have 17 projects. This is 300 million rubles on agriculture. This is R&D. And yesterday we had a meeting with colleagues. We are prepared to come to you in February and to think about this. And I think we will be able to launch that in Altai region, because my parents are coming from that side. Thank you very much, esteemed colleagues. Thank you for excellent presentations. I came from Ufa, from Bashkir State Agrarian University. One more problem wasn't discussed, that is the level of salaries in agricultural sector. We all represent this kind of branch, and please, we receive 58 rubles a month and 100 rubles all over the economy. And if such situation will continue for 10 or 15 years, do you think we can last long? And of course, to protect our university science, yes, we train the specialists, and of course it's difficult, but I would like to say that there are two regions where the level of payment in agricultural sector as compared to the region more than 100%. This is Belgorod area, 108% to 100, and in 2015 107 Tambov area. In all other areas, the level is 58, 54, 86. In Altai area, 53 to 100. In Bashkortostan, 54 to 100. Leningrad, 89 to 100. And 82 to 100 in Moscow area. Lots of problems. And to support the economy in agrarian sector, it is extremely important also in terms of salaries. Otherwise, we will not be able to continue this conversation for long-term strategies, and the ratio of investments is very important. Of course, I would continue this topic. Thank you. Esteemed colleagues, the first comment, I'm thankful to Natalia that she has organized a rally of such prominent experts, and we started in the novel of 12 chairs. We wanted to tell about tram, but started with the international situation. I'm talking about the tram as a locomotive. Let's set up ambitious tasks by 2030 to feed all the planet. But a very ambitious program was presented, and when experts started to talk about real problems, and in this specific case, the governors, and I believe these are the key areas of Russia in terms of the agricultural growth. Belgorod is the champion in Russian era. We found lots of painful points. And actually what we started to talk about technocratic and ministerial programs, but we never mentioned agriculture, but rural culture. It's the way of thinking, the way of actions, and way of understanding. Our Center of Agrarian Research studies these matters, the administrative body and rural mentality. Again, in Belgorod, we have found the most prominent results, and in Altai, the same. And the major problem for us is not just the agrarian policy to set up plans, but agrarian policy is the skill to accomplish these plans. For that, it is necessary to find access to the rural population. And for us, it is most important thing. I would rephrase the long-term strategy of rural culture, the culture of agricultural development of Russia and the world. That's are the things are very important. As sociologists, we are prepared to give certain recommendations which needs to be done to be more efficient in this area. Colleagues, actually we have presentations instead of questions. So questions, please. A question. I never heard from the panel concerning the organization of agrarian markets. Now we see that the commercial and sales structures are dominating, and what is planned to change by the Ministry of Agriculture in organization of the markets? Otherwise, the share of producers would be less, and the budget will not have enough funds to support it. Organization of the market should be such that the positions of the manufacturers should be better, so that they could make more money to satisfy the internal demand. the Ministry of Agriculture planning to develop the global agrarian markets of the country is concentrating on the fact that every region has its own priority, and we have to support the regions who are producing of the kind of the product which is most profitable or most successful. At the same time, we also find the same support of nations with very limited number of population. And this is a balanced program, but this is the global markets. If you are talking about the markets where the commercial networks are dominating, we have a program to develop the wholesale and logistical centers to be commissioned by 2025. My question goes to the representatives of the authorities, and there were lots of publications and lots of criticism was concerning the support mechanisms that actually not exactly the agricultural lifestyle is supported, but huge industrial and commercial groups are supported. They are not interested in the development of the human capital, and they're not interested in the development of demography or the quality of life. And for them, it is better to have drones of all kinds and to reduce to the maximum the number of people working for them. They are kind of building their strategy short term with the high yield, chemistry and everything. And if you analyze the structure of support, it's approximately 350 or 400 huge vertically integrated holdings who are the major manufacturers. And we think that it's the holding who is in charge of food security. But if we talk about that globally, we're talking about the agro cluster, about systemic chains and farms, where we also have an individual with his lifestyle. How would you respond to this kind of criticism? And is there a trend of a state program to form this agrarian clusters? I will respond to that, yes. Well, not all holdings are of that kind. Evgeny Stepanovich could tell us more. Miratorg created a plan for 3,000 jobs, and the kindergarten was also constructed there. What is available in Lenin's farm, it's an excellent social program with thousands of square meters of living quarters for young. But you are right. The social responsibility of business is lesser than if you compare that with the Western companies. Of course, things are different in many areas. And one more thing concerning the social lifestyle. Ministry of Agriculture, they have a program to develop rural areas in Altai and Belgorod area. And they actively participate in the execution of this program, where business, and one of the conditions of the program, if the business constructs a plant, whether it is big or small, and creating jobs at the expense of the program, the road will be built there and at the place where they created living quarters for the workers. Also, they support municipal projects, and since that time, the Ministry of Education supports and provides financial resources for schools. And of course, we don't have a sufficient amount of money for that. And the country is very big. And unfortunately, we don't see quick results of that because the country is big. And we do it simultaneously. There is a project where we have the industrial complex, and roads are part of that program. Excuse me, I don't hear because he's not speaking into the microphone. Well, actually, this cattle is being brought at smaller farms and brought to the slaughter factory. You may come to our place. We would organize an excursion through rural territories, and we can show you how big and small-size companies are working, and including how we execute this program as part of the public-private partnership and how we develop the rural environment. And I don't see too much of antagonistic features. What is industrial lifestyle and those who are working in the agrarian sector? I think there are lots of points for common discussion. However, at least many agrarian companies, they create agrarian settlements, a house with a patch of land and the ability to have a small vegetable farm. In our abstract and theoretical assumptions, they are not proven by the fact. Also, the higher is the salary of the rural citizen, whether he works in the village school or village, the less will be animals held in a household. There is such a relationship, and the program for the development of rural areas is exactly dealing with the problem which you have outlined. And the most important thing which is available in our business, this is the human factor, the human potential, and that is true. And I can be responsible for what I say. I've been working there in 35. As far as the agrarian lifestyle, to a certain extent, I agree. And there are lots of things that, but we don't have to demonize our large factories. It should be competitive. Let us not come about the old technologies. 20 tons of milk were produced in Soviet times. Now we are making 200 or even 300 liters of milk, and that is the matter of competition. Or take any region in rural areas and try to understand the structure of occupancy. That's what we are interested in. If in agriculture we had 70% of population, perhaps today we may have 20%, and the rest would be working in the private farms, in the family farms, cooperatives, and they produce with the help of those agrarian holdings who are integrators, and they produce the product which is value added. They grow vegetables or mushrooms or any other products, and they are occupied and they have very good earnings.
It's important to find this balance between big, medium, and micro business in the rural sector, and there's a lot of government budgeted areas like kindergartens, clubs, and so on. This is what we need to think about. The moderator cannot be heard. She's not using a microphone. Good afternoon. Last year, with the support of the Ministry of Agriculture and the Central Bank, the National Commodity Exchange was launched, now trading grain, and starting from February will trade sugar. And a new setup of work is being worked up. So my question is to Yevgeny Stepanovich. Of course, regions need support to receive support. So who can we address to carry on with this work to popularize this so that everybody should know about it, both sellers and buyers and companies? Elsewhere, everywhere in the world, there are commodity exchange and non-exchange goods. And I believe that the future belongs not so much to exchange trade, but as to electronic trade or internet trend. Our own Alibaba firms need to arise and they will use their information portals. So this market has not been taken yet. And as part of your exchange, you could start forming this information infrastructure, data infrastructure, connecting producers with consumers via a logistical network. So it seems to me that well, I believe that retail networks will die away a few years from now. So internet trading, online commerce is developing so fast that I believe it has the future. So even while retail networks are transformed into, if they transform into online services, they do have some prospect for existence. Ilya Nikolaevich, what is your question? I have decided to ask this question. Dear panelists, the problem is elsewhere. The main problem for Russia is the absence of people's incomes or revenue. You could describe all kinds of projects, but they have never been drivers of growth. Poor people are not going to buy organic food, and if a state program says that our rural workers should amount to a half of any urban dweller, on the average, they will never go into agriculture. And the chief problem of agriculture is our government, the government of the Russian Federation, because if your electricity tariff is 5.80, whereas China sells power at 70 kopecks, you cannot do anything. You can never become competitive. And that means that the system should be changed. And while Microsoft will come here when we have money, and the main issue is assuring profitability for agriculture. Brazil has two ministries, the Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Rural Land. The Ministry of Rural Land caters for small and medium businesses, whereas the Ministry of Agriculture deals with big holding companies. We used to have two ministries, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Interior Ministry. Thank you very much for your statements. 30 minutes from now, another agrarian session will take place, and Irina Krylatova invites you to join us after the break to continue.